From the Middle is a founding member of Odd Pods Media. Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode 250 of From the Middle. We are three middle-class guys living in the middle of America in the middle chapters of our lives with points of view somewhere in the middle. We're a comedy, culture, entertainment, and interview-style podcast. After 250 episodes, turns out some of the most popular podcast genres are comedy and society and culture. So that's what we are. Go tell your friends. In this episode, we talk all kinds of podcast statistics to compare ourselves to others. And then in the back half, we talk about some of the things that we're watching and get into some really sweet and sentimental thoughts on some of our favorite shows. What does Indiana Jones think? Listen in and you'll find out.
Oh, for the love. Sorry, just clearing my Mountain Dew hole.
I got my phone hole cleaned today.
That's where you keep it? You're so cerebral and you're so developed and evolved.
From the Middle after dark over here.
Hi, everybody. This is our 250th episode. Can you believe it?
And just shy of 5 years, Dylan tells me.
Yeah.
Just shy of 5 years. Goodness gracious.
Just shy of 5 years. And in the words of our friend Indiana Jones, it's not the years, honey, it's the mileage. Kendall, we were just talking about your Chicago Tribune hat and serial killers. Do we want to pick up? Do we want to pick up where we left?
Yeah, no. So a little behind the scenes. We often will start talking just as we all log in to our little Zoom call here, and in so doing, we say things that are like, "Dang it, wish we would have been recording."
Yeah,
and so it's there have been times. Maybe you can try to recall them, guess when they have happened. When we've tried to like recreate a conversation. It sounds dishonest that we would do such a thing, but we have done such a thing before. Tried to recreate a moment, and you know how that goes. It never goes quite as well as anyway. But so I'm wearing a Cincinnati Reds hat, and it's using like an old school C logo, like an old English kind of C. And Corey says that it looks like a Chicago Tribune hat that I was a fan of, or whatever it was. It was wittier when he said it in real time.
It does.
I'm trying to make it up.
It certainly looks different than any, like, I would not have immediately jumped to sports hats just based on the logo. So I would never have thought of Chicago Tribune, but
yeah, it's the same C. I think Cincinnati just stole it from the Chicago Tribune.
Old English monograms have a certain style. They're based on calligraphy, right? So if there was a way to make a C, it's that way. And so
I wonder why it is that way. Corey, do you know anything about like old English lettering? Why do you need all this stuff in the middle? Like, I know because it looks fancy, I get it, but like, is it supposed to make sense somehow the way old English letters are formed?
I think of it like in old timey books when the O of Once Upon a Time was embellished a little more than the rest of the copy text. It's kind of like that, right? So it's just some embellishments, all based on the calligraphy of it, right? So if you
but I feel like embellishment. When I think of embellishment, I think of like exaggerating what's already there.
Oh,
this is like they add.
Yeah, makes total sense. Actually, now that you would have him weigh in,
but it's like they took a C and then decided, you know what? There needs to be more to a C. We're going to invent a couple of middle lines to a C for no reason.
We got to
I feel like that's not embellishment. That's like lying. That's like adding to.
Hey,
well, now
Oh,
Now
go
we're
ahead.
on to a topic that our listeners have been waiting for 249 episodes when we break down why Old English letters are the way that they are.
Why is the funny
It's-
stuff before we hit record, and now we want to talk about Old English calligraphy?
Dude.
Exactly. When hey, other podcasts are too. They might talk about calligraphy, but do they ever stop to ask why?
Why? We got to break this down. You guys, when we try to be funny, it falls flat. And then when we're just talking, okay, something with this red light. Anyway, before we go any further, I have to say,
Yeah.
happy belated birthday, Dylan. Dylan's birthday, April 20th. And
This.
so love you, bro. Happy
I love you too. I just didn't know that it was your birthday, and I don't I don't pay attention to social medias. And
Okay.
Well,
I'm
in years
sorry,
past,
Dylan.
we have talked about how he shares a birthday with Adolf Hitler.
Yep.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
um,
That's ugh.
it's the, ooh.
Well, we
well.
that's
it, guys.
Out of the room. Although, if calligraphy is a ratings bomb, people love talking about Hitler. So, History Channel could just fill 24/7 with anything related, and it'll do well.
Here's how dumb I am. Confession, Kendall. Dylan already knows how I have failed him. So we had our first double date,
Yeah.
Sherry and I, with Dylan and Bree for the first time in
Ashamedly, over 6 years.
6 years,
Wow.
which is tragic. So anyway, we get together. We go to 101 Beer Kitchen. You have a great night at Polaris near where we're from. And then we go to ice cream at a little place called Little Lady Soft Serve, where my daughter's going to start working soon. Friends of ours started a soft serve ice cream truck, and now they have a storefront. Anyway, we go through the whole night. We're driving back, and Sherry's like, so I don't know why we didn't buy Dylan's meal or ice cream. His birthday's tomorrow. Oh, God, I totally missed it.
Dylan was like slowly getting out his wallet to pay. Like, okay, I guess I'm paying now. Hey, Corey, I'm just over here. I'm getting my wallet out because I'm about to pay on the.
Didn't forget that it was his birthday. We had even toasted drinks to happy birthday, Dylan. I just didn't think. So if this were like a Pete and Sebastian thing, they would break this down and highlight the error of my ways. So I formally apologize. I prostrate myself before you and beg your forgiveness.
It's the best position you could be in. Do you want me to make you feel better and give us something more to dissect?
Yep.
Other than your prostrate?
The answer is yes. So here's the funny thing. At no point did I expect you to pay. And I don't mean that as in I have such little, what's the right word? I think so little of you that I didn't think you would ever pay. I mean, I wouldn't expect you with me and my wife at dinner. I wouldn't expect you to pay for. It did cross my mind, but if you want me to make you feel better in the process, depending on the situation I'm in, I typically, if I think that's a possibility, depending on the level of comfortability I have with somebody paying for me, I typically will have multiple meals at different price points picked out. And had you mentioned ahead of time that you were going to pay, I probably would have picked a cheaper dish feeling bad, and I wouldn't have really picked what I really would have wanted to eat, which is what I got, because I would have been like, I don't want to, run up the tab when somebody's trying to do something nice. So in theory, I made sure to get what I wanted because I didn't think it was going to work out that way.
I appreciate you stretching to make me feel better. And we both ended up with the sea scallops over risotto cakes and with the Brussels, and it was delightful. So
it was really, really good. I was very pleasantly surprised. So I don't know if you ever do that, like if you're maybe with in-laws or there's a special occasion, do you ever like, oh, if they say something about paying, it's not work. No one cares about running up a work tab. But like if it's friends or family, have you ever done that? Have you ever had like, oh, if they're paying, I'll get like a club or a turkey club or a burger versus, maybe like if I know I'm buying myself, I don't care. I'm going to get a steak or I'm going to surf and turf or.
So, quick story on that and kind of the reverse. Sherry took out a family member that is younger than us, college age. And so it was like, it seemed the appropriate thing to do for Sherry to buy this person's meal.
Sure.
This person's significant other was there. And so Sherry was like, well, I'm not going to cut it
Right.
off at the relative. I'm going to say, hey, and the person goes, really? The significant other goes, really? And flipped right to the steaks.
Oh,
Which is exactly what you want you want them to feel that
right.
freedom, but you also, it is noteworthy that they didn't even kind of hesitate and go, no, or at the very least, and here I'm saying this and didn't even buy your birthday meal. I'm just saying the person like jumped all over. Now they flipped to the steaks, but surprisingly, they ended up choosing a below moderately priced item. So they didn't end up going with it, but they felt the freedom, which
sure.
Yeah, there was probably a pinch under the table from the college age.
I wonder.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's.
What's funny is you could do this steak, but like don't go for the biggest one and don't make a gesture out of the menu flipping. It's like, oh, I'll think about that. Sure.
Steak. How much is it to add the lobster tail?
Pretend to look over the light.
I'm adding,
the light lunch options, and then
I'm gonna get the porterhouse for 2. I don't know what she's having.
Tomahawk. Yeah. So let me make it up to you a different time in a different way. But yeah, that was
see that you do,
Michael.
Oh, and turns out we're going to dinner Wednesday, so
it's out there now.
You're on the hot seat, hotcakes.
That's true. That is happening. Looking forward to it. So anyway, happy birthday, bro. What did you end up doing for your birthday? Did you get anything cool? I know you got the PlayStation Portal, and that was a big part of your gift. But
that was the thing. I definitely got some. Cash. Well, this is a nice way to say it. Just got some quiche. Because I really don't have a lot that I typically spend money on, other than like I enjoy building Lego. For anyone not in the know, Star Wars Day is coming up May the 4th. So the beginning of May, Lego every year does May the 4th promos and will typically release new sets. So that's a really fun time. And you'll get like gift with purchases if you spend so much. So that's typically a good time of the year to spend a little more money on Lego if I'm going to be spending money anyways. So that time of year always comes right after my birthday. So it's a great time to say like, hey, I'll take some cash or Lego gift cards because I know that May the 4th time is coming. Speaking of which, I just bought this for myself, but I normally avoid that front section at Target like the plague where there's a cheap junk just to get you to drop money on your kids. But they had a really nice Star Wars Twin Moon Tatooine little glass cup for like $3 or $4.
There's one Baja Blast in there on the rocks.
What is it?
What do you got in there? Baja Blast? Is that a Baja Blast?
Yeah, a little blast to my Baja. Sure.
Yeah.
And little icy ice. And so there's this really nice glass. And
just one rocks glass that came by itself.
They're individually sold. Okay. I'm the only goober who would drink out of this. So just need one in my house. So I got that. That was nice. And a section I normally avoid. So I'll be prepping. I'll be prepping for the May the 4th Lego promos with the PlayStation Portal on the extra gift cards. And we relaxed. It was nice. I'm trying to think of what all we did. Just a lot of chilling. Didn't feel the need to go anywhere. We had some pizza over the weekend. I had some fish tacos at one point that were super good from a local Mexican restaurant. We went to church. That was nice. I took Friday and Monday off before and after the weekend. So it was a really nice long weekend to make sure. And then maybe we'll mention briefly later, started a new show, which the first episode was great. And really excited to keep watching more. So it was good. Very chill. Nothing crazy going on, which is how I like it. Nice long weekend.
Fantastic.
Fun.
And speaking of things getting older, we mentioned at the top that this is episode 250. We didn't do anything crazy to prepare for this milestone, but I believe you have prepared a few statistics for us, hermano. Is this true?
I did.
Está verdad?
I did. I thought it would be fun. I got a few different things. The beginning podcast, lots of podcasts in the world. But interestingly, the fact that we've made it this long and this far is pretty unique in and of itself. So I've got some statistics to back that up, some generally interesting statistics.
Some
for
might instead
podcasts.
use the word rare, but okay.
What did I say?
That was a throwback to the early episodes. That's all.
Oh, yeah.
I did it for that purpose, not to. Anyway,
I've got a few different types of facts. So we'll list some of those. Feel free to double click into any of those that you find interesting. And when we're done, I'll rattle off the last few things, and then we'll move on to the next segment of this episode. But yes, 250. Congratulations. Very exciting. So here's the first statistic. There are over 4.2 million podcasts available online. But here's a big drop off. Only 17% of them are considered active, having posted an episode in the previous 45 days. Wow. Huge drop off. So we're a wild success if you factor in that we're in the top 17% of podcasts, literally just for having put out shows. So congratulations to us. 83% of podcasts could be considered inactive or potentially failed within the first year, and 90% don't publish more than 3 episodes.
wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I wasn't expecting that number.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's a ton. So even more successful now if you include us in that clump. Double click. Go ahead.
I wonder, I mean, I would love to read articles about this, but like, I wonder why that is. So if I were just going to take my best guess, because I felt a little bit of this when we started, which is like, you guys, I have a lot to say in 3 episodes. Like really passionate on a given topic or have a really strong, passionate point of view on a subject matter or a way of delivering content. And then you get to episode 4 and you're like, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah.
So I wonder if that's true for a lot of people who sort of those armchair experts on a given hobby or topic, and then they kind of get tapped out after, 3 hours worth. Because they use that line or those couple points of view at parties, and then they get to that point where like they haven't thought through it anymore, and they're like, we're out. Well, what do we do?
Yeah, I tell you, there's I think a lot of podcasts go super niche, and I think that can be an issue, right? Is you put, without knowing it, you put a finish line on the thing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a podcast that like I was on a couple times well before From the Middle, called Plugged In Church.
Mm-hmm.
And it is specifically a church technology podcast. And like they kept it going for like a good couple 2-3 years or something like that. And like I'm thinking like, wow. Like even like they're a couple years in when I was on, and I had that thought of like, what do you guys talk about? Like at this point, like this is crazy. Like I went on to talk about lighting, and I forget I was on there twice. I don't remember what the second one was about, and then someone else from our church was on it once.
How are we 5 years in, man, and just finding out that we're getting your sloppy seconds? I didn't know you were on another podcast before this.
Well, I wasn't like hosting another podcast. I was just on it a couple of times, right? I was like, it was something akin to being like their gorilla expert or their King Kong expert. And so I was on a couple of times.
That sounds thrilling. We should do that. I think it's also important to note that while we could be considered wildly successful and that we're still running, some podcasts are definitively written to be seasons
Sure.
and tell stories and have a beginning and the end created as part of their arc, or doesn't they knowingly get into it knowing it won't take more than a couple seasons worth. Like some shows might do 10 or 15 episodes a year across 10 or 15 weeks, knowing that they're done until the following year. So that does happen. Not every show is a weekly show like ours, but it is amazing how many shows there are out there, and how many don't go anywhere overall.
I'll
So
tell you what, after there was this time when COVID hit. So we started before COVID, which sort of like puts us into a different era already. Then COVID hit, and then everybody started a podcast. And there was a lack on everything but the house, a website that my wife likes to go to find deals. Like all of a sudden you couldn't get good deals on things like microphones and cables and stuff like this. Everybody was buying them. And then now you go on to things like everything but the house. And well, actually that wave has passed now. There was a moment in time where you could see everybody's selling their stuff now, their podcast stuff. They did their 3 episodes and then they never picked it back up, or they couldn't figure out how to use it or whatever. And they got rid of their stuff.
Yeah. And also, speaking of different era, I don't want to say we got in before all the celebrity podcasts, because that's clearly not true. There had been plenty, but sincerely, since we've started, lots of insert popular TV show now has a rewatch podcast, or a couple people from a show or movie are going back and talking about. It's very easy for celebrities to be dropped in. I'm not saying they get high viewership numbers or high listenership or viewership numbers, depending on whether it's video, audio, or both, but they get significantly more than people like us creating a podcast, by the nature of the fact that they might already have tens, hundreds, millions followers on social media that they can just push it out to and say, hey, we've got a new podcast going back over Brooklyn Nine-Nine, or going back over CSI, or going back over whatever Alien franchise. And those shows, the celebrity shows, can also easily pull in other celebrity guests of people that they know. So conversely, more credit to us, because we've been having a ton of fun doing this, but we didn't have that like instant drop our first episode 200,000 listens in the first day because, insert celebrity following got us there. So pretty cool. Like in a little bit of a moment where I'm proud of us, we don't have that going for us. And there were plenty of celebrity podcasts, and there will be plenty more. But a lot of those did pop up post-COVID as part of that group that you're talking about.
Well, and all of the comedian podcasts that are out there now. I mean, there were like the few, like the Green Days that started the punk rock like era, like it, or the pop punk era. Like you had like Mark Merritt, who at the time that we started was still known as like the comedian that has a podcast. Tiger Belly was a thing then too, and Joe Rogan obviously. He was a different podcast than he is now. But and then like all this, it became this thing that if you were a slightly under the radar comedian, start a podcast. And it was, to your point, Dylan, step 1, go on Joe Rogan. Step 2, release your podcast. And now everybody came over to you from Joe Rogan. And that's how you got started. So we didn't have that. But then also like there's this, that was a whole nother era, like comedian podcasts, which are all over the place now. There was like literally a couple of them then.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So one of the stats websites, similar number of total podcasts, this site says over 5 million podcasts in the world, boasting over 70 million episodes. That sounds like a lot, but when you break it down, that's only 14 episodes per podcast. and we are at 250. So that's a really interesting number when you talk about total episodes available on the internet by show. Over 464 million podcast listeners worldwide, which is projected to reach 504 million by the end of 2024. The average listener spends a whopping 7 hours per week glued to their favorite podcast app. Episodes between 20 to 40 minutes reign supreme, catering to busy schedules and attention spans. Podcast listenership transcends gender, with women slightly edging out men, 48 to 43%. We've seen the same statistics, I think, over the long haul with ours. Women are the slight advantage over men. Sweden and Norway have the largest number of monthly listeners by percentage of internet users. So the United States and Scandinavia. Now we know where to spend more on billboards. Video podcasts are on the rise, offering a new dimension to audio storytelling, which I think is one thing I'm glad we did early on. It was really just like, even if it was as simple as, and Kendall does all the work, so I can say this part, even if it's as simple as just uploading a file with a unique graphic, it was the number of people that I kept hearing say, I'm just on YouTube all the time. So if your episodes are there, I know it'll be easier for me to go just click over and find them. And so I think that was a good decision that we made early on to just make sure our episodes were on YouTube. And obviously there is camera feed, so if people like watching us, they can see us.
Well, that was important to me because I was like, we're barely interesting enough to be entertaining purely audio. But if you could at least see our dumb facial expressions or the ways that we like laugh at one another or throw our heads back when we're cackling or something, that's at least maybe a little more interesting.
Mhm.
But as Kendall often reminds us, we're not YouTubers. We're a podcast that happens to throw our videos on YouTube.
Well, and that's just by the sheer numbers. Like the vast majority of our listeners are podcast apps.
Yeah.
Through podcasts, not through YouTube.
Which, perfect segue, Spotify and Apple Podcasts lead the pack as the most listened to. It's interesting if it's total plays, people prefer Spotify. But if you talk about people who are browsing, searching, downloading, and listening offline, then Apple wins. So it's kind of that slight difference among users, people that are more comfortable downloading to listen later. I think especially versus like travel on the way to work, stuff like that, versus people who are already streaming, probably switching between music and podcasts. Peak listening time is in the morning, with most episodes enjoyed on mobile devices. In a lot of ways, we check a lot of the boxes. The most popular genres are news, comedy, and true crime. A lot of podcast statistics sites will also say society and culture. So we would like clump ourselves in with comedy and society and culture. The most popular time tends to be 40 minutes or less. We're over, but like over is not bad. So a lot of the things that we do with our show are kind of what people are going for. Most people, when they say or give feedback on what they are going to for the most, it's entertainment or / to laugh. The second most common response is like news. And the third is like other, like informative or true crime or stuff like that. So obviously true crime is super popular, but like a majority of people are going to podcasts to be entertained, to laugh, have a good time on their way to work or in the mornings when they're doing whatever they're doing, busy work, checking emails, traveling, all that stuff. So it's kind of funny. A lot of the stuff that we talk about that we hope is true is actually true of podcast listeners. Whether they're listening to our show or not, they're not. But if they were, they would happen to align very well with our show. Podcasting is over a $23 billion industry, which is pretty crazy. By 2030, they expect that to be $131 billion. If you want percentages on Spotify, it's 33.7, 27.6% listen on Apple, and then it's a huge drop off, but you get down to iHeartRadio past that, Google Podcasts, Chrome, Amazon Music, Alexa, things like that. Let's see. This stuff is really interesting. They've got it like broken down by devices, when people listen. Let's let's see, 66% of podcast listeners in the United States are ages 12 to 34. That's again really kind of close to who we're targeting. Like you could probably take half that group and then skew it a little older, and that's probably what our statistics say are the same or are like the right group. In the same study, 43% of podcast listeners aged 35 to 54 had listened to podcast episodes in the last 30 days, making them the fastest growing group of listeners. So that's kind of slightly older, our age and slightly older is growing really quickly.
We're getting a lot right to not be seeing a whole lot of that $23 billion.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So popular.
Which, if you look at the description below, there's a tip jar, and you can contribute to that, so we can buy hot sauce to do hot ones.
Yeah. If you want to see a not safe for work video of Dylan dying from hot sauce on YouTube,
who doesn't?
That'll be where you'll want to go. We are comedy, so that would be also true crime. If I die, turns out
trying to get into new genres.
I don't know how more true crime it could be if I literally died, and that's a crime.
They will look back on this episode as evidence.
Yes, you heard it here, folks.
That's right. Me spilling the beans on the old Hubble case. So I said comedy is most popular genre in the US. By share of weekly listeners, it's 22%. And then after that, it's news, a very close 21, true crime 18, sports 17, health and fitness 17, religion and faith 16, politics 16. I wouldn't have put several of those above politics. I would have suspected politics would have been like right behind true crime. Self-help 15, investigative journalism 13, finance 13. So really interesting. 34% of US adults have engaged with podcasts in the last 12 months. They consistently tune into podcasts dedicated to true crime as well. Female podcast listeners are almost twice as likely to listen to podcasts about true crime than male podcast listeners. So don't cross your lovely ladies. They are well-versed.
They know how to get away with murder. Yeah.
How to literally commit true crimes and get away with murder. 7% of US podcast listeners aged 30 to 44 listen to sports podcasts on a daily basis. That feels like a lot for sports, but that's probably like people that have Fox Sports and ESPN sports podcasts on like a daily download. For like,
there's a lot of like local fandoms that have like their own podcasts, like guys like us who, if we were like an Ohio State Buckeyes football only podcast, like that kind of thing exists.
Or if you like, let's say you rooted for the Chicago Tribunes, for example, like you were their biggest fan, and you wanted to know what was going on with your team.
Yeah. This is what I was talking about earlier. So, most popular podcast platform for downloading. I don't know what that says about users. I guess if you know somebody's not super techie, or maybe they don't have unlimited data, get them to use Apple, because almost 71% of people who download for offline use Apple Podcasts.
Apple does it automatically, I think. Like you
could be, yeah.
It's very easy to accidentally have Apple download your favorite podcasts for you.
Yeah, and I'm convinced when our show shoots up and downloads that somebody accidentally went and hit like 100 at a time.
Left it toggled on.
Yeah. I'm sure. Let's see. On average, podcasts that have been live for 30 days get around 141 downloads within the first month. So you're talking about something like 30 some a week. So we beat the average. So that's good. 30 some downloads. Let's see. Majority of podcasts are between 20 and 40 minutes. If you look at our segment, 18% of podcasts are over 60 minutes. So about a fifth, which is what we fall in. So kind of interesting. The preferred is 20 to 40. That's where most fall. Man, there's just a ton.
See you guys.
Yeah, but it looks like we're
sounds like we need to save the rest of it for next week. And we'll gain listeners by doing so.
Comedy.
There was some really interesting statistics on basically we shouldn't ever talk about AI because it's such a popular subject that's a 500% growth topic for discussion. So just don't talk about people too much AI. There was also some really interesting statistics that, like, just from a listener's point of view, we don't really track this, but the longer a podcast has been out, the likelihood that somebody will buy a product mentioned by the host shoots up to like 90%. So like every year it's like an incremental thing that people are far more likely to buy from the podcast that they're listening to, which I thought that was super interesting.
So be sure to check out artiusman.com. That's ARTIUSMAN.com for all your amazing, locally made, natural product, men's grooming stuff for the facial hairs and the skin. You'll be glad you did. Use promo code the middle at checkout to get 25% off of your very first order.
Yes, that too. And I think that's a lot of the most interesting ones.
Well, thanks for doing that, man.
Yeah, Dylan.
I appreciate you doing the homework. That's really fascinating. Sometimes it doesn't feel like we're wildly successful, but according to those metrics, we're doing something right. And
we're doing okay.
I just want to thank the two of you because it's been fun. And before we go to break, the listeners, if you're still with us after 249 and a half episodes, gosh, we sure appreciate you. Why are you still here? Please comment below so we can be sure to bake that into subsequent episodes. But no, we really appreciate it. It's been a fun journey. We've learned a ton. We're going to keep doing it. We have no signs of stopping. But yeah, we just appreciate you. You make it fun, and engaging with you is our favorite thing. So it's a good time to throw in that call to action, which is comment below. We have a phone number. You can text or email us. If you want to send a voice message, we love those too. Thoughts, feedback, opinions, topics you want us to weigh in on, we'll take all of it. And I think it's
one final stat before we go to break and hear the last segment. I thought it was really interesting. Most podcast listeners that listen regularly say that they listen to all of every episode, or most, if not all of every episode. I thought it was really interesting that people who listen regularly claim, at least, that they listen. So keep listening. After we come back from the break, I'm going to finish my stats segment with some stats that show what kind of comedy air we're up in, and some other things that have run a similar number of episodes. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Pantsless Aaron.
This is Stevie.
And I'm Augie.
And we are BFYTW, a podcast all about playing games and having fun. Our games are usually based on British panel shows and game shows, but we'll play anything that captures our attention and imagination. Why? It's right there in the title.
You'll never guess what the F stands for.
All right. So I'm wondering for the YouTube viewers, or for you guys, I'm thinking this, because every now and again, you'll see me like adjust my camera. Does it bother you that like I could be centered on the window with my camera angle, but I wasn't. I was here.
I didn't think anything of it, but now that you've said it, you have to.
Now I'm here, and if I scoot over just a little bit, now I'm centered on the window.
Do that one.
Is that better? Would it bother you now knowing that if it wasn't like this?
You bother me.
Okay, I thought so.
No, that's from Friends. Also, you need to now be centered on the window, and it needs to be centered on the windows. So both is the right answer.
Okay,
this
so
way
right now,
and this way.
I think you've got some. I think you've got some crooked blinds. I think they curve up a little.
They do. I'm not going to do anything about that.
The pane. Look at the line. The bottom white line is
You could lower.
Oh, I need to like do this.
You could lower them.
Oh,
down.
What about? Does this help?
Oh,
yeah,
God.
it's better.
Is this better?
This is all getting included in the second half.
But now I'm covering up the light on my face. Now I've got that weird hat shadow situation.
So if we were talking to my daughter right now, I would say you're purposely being a bugger.
Quit being a bugger, Kendall.
Quit being a bugger. All right. I teased people, and I don't tease very often because, frankly, I'm not good at it. And
how dare you titillate?
And I was going to say, and frankly, I don't have anything feathery, so I can't do this any longer. I talked about things that we share air with in the comedic world, and it doesn't feel fair to compare us to other podcasts, even though that's the closest thing, because frankly, there's other podcasts that have been around a lot longer than ours, and I don't want to do that. So I picked sitcoms that have had different episode counts that are comedies, because those are usually only 20 episodes a season, 20 minutes, and frankly, are probably far less funny than some of our best stuff. So I'm going to rattle off some popular TV sitcoms and how many episodes they lasted. And if you want to double click into any of those, we can, or I can keep going. The TV show Friends lasted from 1994 to 2004, or 10 years with 236 episodes. So we've now done more episodes of our show at 3 times the length than Friends.
They were getting paid $1 million each per episode.
And you don't want to know what we make. Married with Children from 1987 to 1997, also with 10 years, 259 episodes. So we should have them beat soon. The Jeffersons ran from 1975 to 1985, also 10 years, 253 episodes for the Jeffersons. Cheers ran from 1982 to 1993, 11 years with 275 episodes. We'll see them soon. Frasier ran from 1993 to 2004, although it's back on television now, so this number is going to grow. But as of its original run, ran for 11 years, 264 episodes.
Wow.
We're literally talking about some of the greatest television comedically of all time. So I just want everyone to know that. MASH, 1972 to 1983, 11 years, 256 episodes. 256 in MASH. Oops, skip this one. Will and Grace ran 2 different times from 98 to 2006 and 2017 to 2020. 11 years, but only 246 episodes. Outlasted Will and Grace. Modern Family, 2009 to 2020. Wildly popular show.
Yeah.
I've never watched it, but one of the shows that most people say recently is like one of the best comedies since The Office. 11 years, 250 episodes.
Kendall, have you ever watched an episode of Modern Family?
Oh, a bunch of them. Amy
Okay.
and I used to watch quite a bit. Very funny show. Very well done, in my humble opinion.
Never seen an episode.
Yep.
Don't know
You should-
anything about it.
It's on Hulu.
Sofia Vergara.
Murphy Brown, 1988 to 1998, 11 years, 260 episodes for Murphy Brown. Bob's Burgers, 2011 to present, 13 years on television, 270 plus counting episodes. I'm not going to do anything like The Simpsons because like that's an obscene.
That's depressing. Yeah, that's not.
2.5 Men, 2003 to 2015, 12 years. I didn't realize that show even went.
Wow. Same.
262 episodes
Wow.
after 12 years. So not too shabby. King of the Hill, 1997 to 2010. That feels like a really long amount of time because it bridged the 2000s, early 2000s. 13 years, 259 episodes of King of the Hill. The Big Bang Theory, 2007 to 2019, 13 years on television, 279 episodes. Let's see. The Love Boat, for some of the older listeners, 1977 to 1990, 13 years on television, 250 episodes. Let's see, I'm not going to do that one. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I'm wearing my Wrexham hat for Rob and Ryan. Always Sunny. This is a weird one. 2005 to present. It's still on. It's been on 19 plus years, 170 episodes. Also another super popular show, but just because of how many episodes per season and how long it's been on, I thought also worth mentioning because it's a very popular show. Curb Your Enthusiasm, 2000 to 2024. Big gaps between some of those seasons. 24 years on television, 120 episodes. Shorter seasons, much longer time.
You know, I recently found out that this is my chance to talk about Jim Harbaugh one last time.
Yeah.
that he like watches 2 TV shows. One of them is like an old show, like I don't know what it was, like Hogan's Heroes or something of that era. And Curb Your Enthusiasm is the second one that's like all he wants. It's I ran across what I'm going to call I'm taking a rabbit trail here. The Jim Harbaugh-ist video that I have ever seen. And it was a tour that Jim Harbaugh was given of his RV because he recently signed a contract to coach the Chargers out in LA for next season, and had to move out there. And instead of renting a house or whatever the normal thing that a guy who just signed a multi-million-dollar contract and is on the heels of a multi-million contract, said, you know what? It'd be fun to drive my old RV out there, just live in that. And so that's what Jim Harbaugh has been doing. And it's the Jim Harbaugh story that I've ever seen, like watching this guy. And then he's like showing his DVDs of like the 2 shows that he watches over and over again. And
he should start a podcast from the RV and bring his guests. There's a couple people that's the thing now. They drive to the guest. I think Steve-O does it.
Steve-O does that
in his van.
Yeah.
So you drive to the guest and then have him on your show, and that's awesome.
I just imagine he has like he opens an unheated can of baked beans every night before bed with a warm glass of milk and puts Dirty Dozen on repeat until he falls asleep. I just imagine that's his life out there.
Yeah. They showed some B-roll of him just like talking with neighbors at the RV park. And like there was this lady that was like saw the cameras and was wondering, who is this guy? And you just see him like just down home guy, like introducing himself to her. Yeah, my name is Jim. And he's like, so what do you do? Well, I came here to work for the Chargers. And she's like, oh yeah. And then like even I'm coaching there now. And he was like trying to not make a big deal out of it, but like, how do you tell somebody what you do for a living when you're Jim Harbaugh without making a big deal out of it? But he was trying so hard.
You don't. You just if he wasn't so weird and a Michigan coach, he would make excellent reality TV because you just wouldn't be able to quit watching. And it's like some people would say, oh, he's just, what an all-American guy. He's down home, blue collar. He's just being frugal and living in an RV, but he's not doing it for that reason. It's because he's weird. I don't even know him, but I know he's not doing it because he's frugal and he's trying to like save a buck. It's because he's weird. And it's a whole different reason. It's like, oh, he's doing that because he's mentally crazy is a whole different reason than he's just a regular guy trying to live frugally. Those are wildly different.
I mean, mentally crazy guy who's like objectively one heck of a coach.
Yeah, I can't fault him for that.
There's another story, like a video that came out of a guy that took some video with his cell phone. He was out in the middle of the night, was driving and came across a tree going across the road. And so like he went and grabbed his chainsaw and he's out there by himself in the dark, like trying to clear the road. And another car comes driving up, just says, hey, can I help you? And so that guy gets out and just starts like clearing branches and stuff. And eventually like the guy, it's dark. So they're working for a minute before like he gets a look at him. And it's Jim Harbaugh, who just pulled over to help this one guy with his chainsaw clear a tree off the road. And so those 2 guys are out there in the rain clearing a tree. And it's like, it's only Jim Harbaugh. He's the only coach at that caliber that's pulling over to help a guy clear a tree off the road when like the county could be doing it. But no, I'm here. Why can't I do it?
Administrative blue tape. I'll just go out and clear that tree.
That's awesome.
I don't care who you are. I love the guy.
So there you go. There's some shows that we've had a similar number of episodes to that folks listening might have heard of before.
Indeed.
Thanks for doing that, man. I appreciate all the homework and effort that went into that. Those are some fun factoids.
Yeah, some little statistics and some fun little comedy show lists we could go through. Absolutely. We and frankly, those are probably a bunch of shows we've talked about before that we've watched or enjoy. But it felt like it was going to even be a nice segue into like maybe some of the things we had been watching anyways. So I was like, here's some shows that people have watched or still on TV. I'm still watching Curb Your Enthusiasm. That was listed as one of those. I'm still in the middle of watching through the newest season. So yeah, just right in the vein of one of our normal topics.
Love it. Not much for me because there's been a lot going on with the old shed. I sent you guys pictures
Yeah, dude.
last week. They put it up in a day, 3 hours to do the gravel base, another 3 to do the shed. And I got out there with the kids and the family right away, and we started hauling stuff out to it. The next night was 6 hours in the garage and listening to music and getting the garage cleaned. Everything is organized. Everything has a place. The shed is not destroyed. It's now organized as well. There's things I want to do to it to give Sherry a little she shed corner for potting plants and doing gardening stuff. With my grandpa came up with this idea of doing like a workbench that like is on hinges and like flips down, and then you could flip it up and then the legs come out at 90-degree angles and support it. So I'm going to do that back there. It's just a whole new world, you guys. So now the garage is 1 car, 1 motorcycle, 2 bikes, and my refrigerator full of beverages. And that's
Perfect.
it.
Beautiful.
Perfect.
And it's awesome. So I haven't been watching much other than Lily, my oldest, who is really into studying American Sign Language, was really excited, as also a Marvel fan, to watch Echo, which is not a new show. So we started that the other night, watched the first 2 episodes, both really enjoyed it. Dylan talked a lot about it in a previous episode. Fascinating as an amputee and deaf person, actress to portray one in the show, and does it so well, and fun cast, and enjoy the tie-ins to Daredevil and Kingpin and Hawkeye and all that stuff. So that's been fun to watch. I'm way behind on my podcasts, so I got to get caught up on that because Pete and Sebastian have been having some epic guests. They've wanted to get Andy Garcia for like 6 years, and he's just one of many people. Big name celebrities that they've had. So they're doing more guest driven podcasts. So I've got like those backed up that I need to watch, as well as Tiger Belly and Crystalia's stuff. So been doing a lot of outdoor stuff because it's spring and the weather's been nice-ish. So I'm behind, but that's kind of what I'm up to.
Wonderful.
Kendall.
Well, for me, so the night that we're recording this, Monday Night Raw is going down in Columbus. And which I tried a couple different ways. This was the closest I've ever been to actually going, to the point where I know it's going to happen eventually, that I'm going to actually go to a show. But I put the feeder out to you guys, and that didn't work out. And then I thought, or simultaneously was thinking about bringing my boys, because they've gotten into it. Whatever my parenting choice was to let my boys start watching professional wrestling, and explaining all the way, I don't need to explain to them anymore, but at first I had to make it very clear that, this is not real. They are acting. These guys are friends. Don't try the things that you're seeing for the most part.
Sports entertainment.
Yep. And they understand all that now, but now it's like to the point where they've got favorite wrestlers. I've got Joel is like in love with Cody Rhodes and has like a blue and red like jumpsuit kind of thing that he put on like just like 2 days ago.
That's awesome.
Without a shirt underneath and the jacket open, and he's like doing a Cody Rhodes pose. I got a picture of it. It's the cutest thing in the world. He made a couple of signs in his room that just say "I love Cody."
When they start doing the moves and the callbacks, like that's a special moment.
Dude, I'm into it. So I looked into it. Was just kind of a little bit too pricey for now.
Too
And
pricey,
they might
a
be a
little
little
too
bit
last
young.
minute, but I could see the three of us going and having an absolute blast.
I
So
could.
let's get out ahead of it next time and we'll vlog it. That'd be fun.
Yeah. I also figure importantly is that there are things that you don't see on the edit. So like there's the live version, and then there's the one that they like actually release on Hulu the next day, which is a little bit condensed, and certainly they cut out some of the less family friendly moments. Not that it's a family friendly show for most people, or for a lot of people, I understand that, but it would be even less family friendly to see it live, and to hear the crowd chants and even some of the language on some of the wrestlers and that kind of thing. But some of the stuff that you can skirt by watching the TV edits, that you can't do live. So there's that.
WrestleMania was the last event, right? Was it a WrestleMania, the pay-per-view?
Yeah.
WrestleMania just happened
40.
A couple weeks ago. WrestleMania 40.
Yeah, I heard from one of the listeners, Chelsea, who mentioned she went with her husband. That great show, lots of great guests, surprise, whatever. Kind of echoed your sentiments. The only reason the crowd started to turn a little bit was they ran out of cherry Pepsi, apparently, at the venue. So not a crowd that likes to run out of their cherry Pepsi for future use. Maybe take a cooler next time, I would say, with your own cherry Pepsi. Just an odd. It was odd to hear that drink specifically.
They'll turn on you real quick without.
They'll turn on you, pretty quick. But
I have started watching Manhunt on Apple TV Plus. Which, for those who don't know, is a story. It starts with the assassination of Lincoln, and then it's the wild manhunt for John Wilkes Booth afterward, which is fun, fascinating. I like it. I'm engaged. I'm 3-4 episodes in, and I'm fully in. There's one interesting choice of an actor, which is Patton Oswalt is in it, which he does not fit the feel that they're going for, and like the character that he's playing it like kind of Patton Oswalt-ish, and so like it just doesn't. It feels, whenever he's on, it feels a little clunky. I feel like there's a time and place for him, and I feel like this isn't it. I like him as an actor. I like a lot of things that he's done. This is not one of them. I find him a little disruptive.
Really interesting casting choice. You just said his name after you described the show, and I went, huh? Like there was some dissonance there. Like it didn't
exactly like
make sense. Really? Okay. His comedy.
Yeah. It's almost like it's almost like they went for a name grab, and that was the best they could get with the name grab actor, and then they gave him the role and then didn't give him any direction and just told him be you. So he feels a little clunky at times, but overall, I'm into it.
All right. So Manhunt it is.
So if you are subscribed to Hulu and also have Disney Plus, we've talked about it before, but there's an integration. There's an extra tab in your Disney Plus. So it says like Star Wars, Marvel, National Geographic, Pixar, and then Hulu. So you can actually click into Hulu, not to open the Hulu app, but see the Hulu content inside Disney Plus, which is pretty cool. It's convenient. You don't have to open another app. You can see one more layer of things. It is weird seeing some of the programming show up from Hulu, like High Hopes about marijuana and Shogun on FX, and some of those other very serious shows show up within the Disney Plus portal. So it's a little jarring, but I just finally got to watch the first episode of Shogun, which was awesome. Not a show for kids and probably even some adults. There was HBO levels of kind of some violence and nudity up front, but really, really interesting. it's not often that you watch something and feel like they really just freaking nailed the first episode. Like you got to kind of be into like Japanese history or history for that to be your show. Kind of like I would say similarly to like Vikings or some of the shows based around ancient Rome or some of the like you kind of have to already like that a little bit. But it's not often that I watch something and go, man, they really nailed the first episode at engaging people, high quality, really well thought out. Right away. So I hope that it continues at that level because they started out very high. So Shogun is really interesting. Looking forward to watching more. I also on Disney Plus watched Timeless Heroes, Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford episode on Disney Plus, and I had this feeling at the end. It was good. It was a good documentary. It was about exactly those two things, like the sort of summation of the Indiana Jones story with the most recent movie, and then also Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. But I sort of got this like I have to have like Corey's take on it and some listeners' take and Kendall's take because I feel like and I said Corey first and not Kendall because as a brother thing. Like, do you feel the same that it really feels like the end of something really amazing that you're not sure when something like that'll be captured again? The essence of a character in a story and the music and the writing and the whole of it being so incredible, like Star Wars or like Indiana Jones. I felt the same way at the end of Lord of the Rings. Something so perfect, so perfectly, and they're not perfect, but you know what I mean. It's so well done and well cast and acted and written and the effects and it's like you're almost sad, like, when will I get to see something like that again? Like, when will I get to experience something like having been an Indiana Jones fan since I was a little kid? When will I get to see something that amazing again? I think the MCU has been a lot of that, like capturing a lot of people's imagination and attention for as many years. I'm not saying there's nothing else like it, but something like that coming to the end, you're very aware that it's the end then for Indiana Jones. Even if it comes back, even if they recast it, Harrison Ford was Indiana Jones and Indiana Jones was Harrison Ford. And I don't know that any level of recasting will fix it. It doesn't mean they can't make something as enjoyable. I don't know. It's just that it's a sense of like the end. It's like how people talk about the end of a really, really great book and they're just so sad that it's over. Like they want to go back and start it again. And so I had that coming out of that documentary, that it was just this sort of, as they're talking about, maybe he didn't even realize what the creating one more movie would mean to him. It was sort of like, I didn't realize what watching this and kind of realizing Dial of Destiny was the end. A little bit of like childhood finishing from those stories. I don't know. It was really, it wasn't that the documentary was that amazing, but it ended really well. And it certainly got me thinking and feeling about, the end of Indiana Jones, and Star Wars is getting so much bigger that what was once small and felt like this nice little story in a bubble is now really big and exciting, but also it's not what it originally once was either. And so I kind of feel similarly about Star Wars and MCU. It's just hard to see where things are going. So maybe it'll keep going and maybe it'll keep doing what it's doing. And maybe it won't. And then if it's done and if that feeling goes away with like Star Wars and Marvel, like what's the next thing that might create that level of
yeah, you did a really good job of articulating it. And I think just my reaction, having not seen the documentary, is that while you said the documentary itself wasn't all that great, what it did do was highlight when you have the perfect formula of director, casting, music, it creates a cultural phenomenon. That's the layer I would add to what you're saying, that then feeds itself. And the only thing I can liken it to is like when there wasn't binging and you didn't stream stuff and people watched shows, and we've talked about this so many times, it's annoying, but like, and you would talk about it at the water cooler. I remember when the last episode of Friends was happening, and it was on every newspaper, every entertainment-based newspaper, every entertainment-based magazine. People had followed the show for that 9 or 10 years. It had become a cultural phenomenon, and it was finally going to wrap up. And everybody was, what's the final scene going to be? And then talking about it the next day. And it's like, so whether that's George Lucas stepping away from Star Wars and selling it to Disney or whatever that is, it's just like that will never be again. And it's somebody once said in the comments on YouTube, it's like, don't be sad for what's going away. Be happy that you got to experience it at all. I'm butchering the thing, but it was like, I feel that way. Like Lost sort of jumped the shark after a while, but that was a big cultural phenomenon show. Even Matrix trilogy or Lord of the Rings, like you talked about earlier, they can keep going on, but like maybe this is why the original trilogy Star Wars fans are like, not my trilogy. It's because it was so perfect in a moment in time, and if you got it, you got it, and you went deep and you knew all the lore, and it made you appreciate it more. And then I don't know. I didn't make any clear points there, but I feel what you're saying. And yeah, that's definitely true. More so here because those two, the character and the actor, were so enmeshed.
Yeah, this isn't this isn't Dave Prowse under the Darth Vader costume that you can put on somebody else and
Right.
the character lives on, but the actor's gone.
Yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
Even
with James Bond, you had, 10 different versions.
Had different Bonds,
Yeah.
and maybe somebody will capture that later. And so it's not like a will it ever happen again. It's sort of like, what will it be?
Mm-hmm.
But because Lord of the Rings has done that, I think for a lot of people, that trilogy especially, the cultural phenomenon that was that, whatever 6-7 years worth of releasing arc and ending, and those actors across all those films did that for people.
Yep.
Pirates of the Caribbean would be another, Johnny Depp, Keira Knightley, and
Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, Kendall, go ahead.
No, I was going to bring that into the sports world a little bit. Like when you're from a fan perspective, when your team like wins a championship, and any one like sports fan doesn't experience like a lot of championships in their life. And so I think a lot of people can relate to that feeling of like you have this season that seemed magical, and then you actually win it all after all of the times of coming close to doing so. And it feels so good that night when you're watching the game, and then for like another few days or so you're still kind of living in it. And then you start having that feeling of like, yeah, but it's like the season's like actually over.
Mm-hmm.
And it's done. And I know that this is like feeling is going to go away. And I'm going to be back to like looking for it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wish that like, can we just like end the sport now and not have a next season?
Yeah.
Especially in college sports, because now you're losing your players and things of that nature. And then to think about like from an athlete's perspective of the same kind of thing, like they have to move on. They have to actually trudge through rebuild seasons and that kind of thing after that. And so forth. And we talked about it a little bit with the Michigan Ohio State rivalry thing, and how the playoff is going to vastly change that, and how an expanded Big Ten is going to vastly change the feel of the Michigan Ohio State game. Not that the rivalry is going to go away, but like the winner take all aspect of the rivalry, which made it so great, is going to be gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so like we're not going to experience that again. Like we've done so many times over the course of our life. Like that's over. We have something else to look forward to, and we don't know exactly what it's going to be like to having all of these sort of new heavy hitters in the Big Ten, as well as the idea that, you're going to lose 2 games if you're one of the heavy hitters and still make it to the playoffs and have just as much chance as anyone else to winning the whole thing. Like, that's going to be true now. And that's going to come with its own level of excitement. But like that game, the game is going to be affected by it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at best, you're going to have a really close game in the season, and then we might meet again in the playoff. Maybe even in the playoff finale, and hope that you have another really great game. But most fans don't want to play their rival 2 times in the same season, if it's a sport where they don't have to. So it'll be interesting.
Well, those really big moments in entertainment and sports, even if you don't follow closely that team or that individual, let's say you're not even a fan, you can still feel it. Like, it transcends you following that person. And my example would be, I've always been an Undertaker fan, but I didn't watch wrestling year on year on year on year from the time I was 10 until going to be 40 this summer. I watched in patches, and I didn't see all of his matches. But when he retired, like, I felt that, like, his character and what he brought to sports entertainment, you could feel watching him, whether you were
feel that,
whether you were a fan or not, or even if you were a fan, what, just like a loose fan who didn't follow all the time. And then you have your diehard version. So I know the Steel Curtain Steelers, or the red stocking years of the Cincinnati Reds, or like, there are these teams, individuals, people, where I think it just, like, the rest of society recognizes the specialness of something, even if they didn't follow it closely. But this podcast is not coming to an end. This is not the end of our era. We're going to keep going past 250, but we don't know for how long. But we said from episode 1, we don't really know where we're going, but we want you along for the ride, and we're still riding. So keep tuning in every Wednesday morning, or whenever you listen. They drop on Wednesday mornings. We're going to keep putting out content. Some episodes are going to be bangers, and some episodes are going to flop. You already know this because you've been listening for 250 episodes. But Kendall, Dylan, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for tuning in. And we would love to hear your thoughts on 250, and catch you next time for 251.